Hey, this is Scott Allen Miller, and today I decided I'm going to be filming outside because it is an absolutely beautiful day and there's no wind and it's so lovely. Why be inside? And there's always noise of like fans or air conditioners or something when you're inside, so this is perfect. Anyway, today I want to talk about how to get into IT. I get asked this question a lot, and actually I got asked twice yesterday, so I figured this is a perfect time to make a video. And so IT is an interesting field because it is directly related to business. It tends to be wide open. There's so many paths to getting into IT, so many ways to approach it, and so many opportunities within the field that it's hard to really give a this is how you do it. If you want to become a lawyer, it's pretty simple. You do well in high school, you get into an undergrad program, you excel there, you take the entrance exams, and you do grad school for law. It's pretty much a given path. You don't have to experiment with lots of different things. But with IT, it's very, very different. It's also very cool that both there are so many different places that you can go with IT, and there are so many ways you can get into IT, and you kind of have to play with what works for you. We'll start with how do you get that first introduction? Well, assuming that you're interested in IT, that's the first trick, right? Are you interested? Is that something you're just trying to discover? So look into that. Figure out exactly what it is about IT that interests you. The next thing is, if you can, start plotting a career path. And I don't mean this is where I'll be in 1 year, this is where I'll be in 10 years. That stuff's great. But don't start there for your very first how to get into IT. What you really want to know is, I'm really interested in IT because I want to do this job or that job or this other thing. Right, really define those things. Make yourself some goals for your career. This will help you in every stage that you do along the path. And that may be as simple as I love managing computers, and that means that something like systems administration might be right for you. Or I really like automating systems, and I enjoy making systems work for me. Well, maybe an automation engineer is kind of the path you want to take. Or you really like helping people. You like sitting down and talking with end users and helping them understand their problems and guiding them. Well, you might be looking at a training or a help desk or desk side support or some form of application support might fit into that. You might really be into data mining and data sciences. You might be looking at some form of database work or BI work. You really like networking. You're really into switches and routers and all that kind of stuff. Lots of networking careers out there. So do some of that soul searching, figure out what it is you like. And maybe it's just, I like all these things about IT, and hopefully along this path you enjoy the business aspects, because IT is a business field and this can't be overstated. You will, even in the help desk roles, you will be needing to understand the business that you're in. You will need to understand how business interacts with technology, and you need to understand the different roles within the business. And pretty much every decision you make, all the guidance that you provide, has to be in the context of the business that you're supporting. So that's not something you're ever going to get away from. If you like computers but you don't like business, IT is not the field you're looking for. That field would be bench. And there's lots of careers there as well. They're different. There is some overlap, but there's lots of good, solid local hometown bench work. There is small business bench work. There is big business bench work. There is data center bench work. That's out there. So if you love computers but you hate business, there is a career for you. It's just not IT. A lot of people go into IT wishing they were in bench. You don't want to make that mistake from the beginning. There may be some overlap. You maybe end up doing some IT careers or jobs along the way in your career, but you don't start going down the wrong path. And of course, IT is not software engineering. Again, a lot of overlap and a lot of the same ways to get into things, but they are separate careers. They have separate disciplines. They work differently. They report to different organizations within the company, and you'll want to look at that a little bit separately. Don't try to blend everything into IT. A lot of people do, and that makes it very confusing and very challenging in ways that it shouldn't be. So, how do you get in? You have no experience, you've done nothing. Let's assume that you're interested in computers and business, but you have done nothing to advance your career. And you may be 30 or you may be 12. Doesn't matter. We have basically the same opportunities. And it's one of the great things about IT. There's nothing that says that you can't get in later in life, and there's nothing that says you can't get in before you're even legally allowed to work in your state. You can't get paid, but you can start. And take that from someone who started at 13. So, at the very beginning, one of the great things about IT is it's very accessible. So once you know what it is you want to learn, you can get out there and start learning it on your own. And that's the first step. You're not going to get into IT without knowing things. There's an unlimited number of people with experience and knowledge that are already trying to get into IT jobs. You can't compete by simply being eager eagerness will be shown by having educated yourself. IT rewards self-starters and people who go out and make things happen. So go out and make your education happen. This starts by acquiring computers, setting up labs, building stuff at home so that you can start learning IT. This is not the same as playing with computers. It's not, ooh, I put in some new memory, I put in a new hard drive, I put in a graphics card, look, I'm doing IT. That's not IT. That is bench. That is not IT. What you would be doing for IT is things like, I'm installing operating systems, I'm configuring them, I'm learning how to configure them remotely, I'm assisting my if you're a kid, treat your parents like customers, support their computers, support your family computers, support your neighbors' computers, learn how to support desktops, put in networks, put in firewalls, do some cabling. Cabling's not IT, that's electrical work, but it's good experience to have. And install applications, manage applications, monitor antivirus, learn to use lots of different business applications, learn how to install them, update them, keep track of them. As you start moving towards servers, install your first servers, put in virtualization, do backups, do all kinds of things. There's pretty much no task that you would do in IT that you can't do on your own at home. There's a few exceptions, but very few. If you've heard about it in big business, chances are you can do it at home. And doing it at home is critical. Even for people who are in big business, they're going to be doing it at home. And this is not something you will do before you get into your career and stop. This is something you will keep doing for your entire career. Always. Your work at home in your home lab will not only be something you always do, it will be something you always keep on your resume and brag about. So stay focused on that. Make it a habit. Become part of a lifestyle of learning on your own and learning by doing hands-on. Now, of course, getting stuff and starting to try things out by hand, that's great. And that builds real experience. You're going to want some learning paths to use that lab to learn those things, right? If you just go out and do those, get that material, you might be like, well, okay, so I installed this application. Now what? What did I learn? What you want to do is get some books and start reading about stuff in IT, right? Learn from, in many cases, vendors, and learn about how they feel products should be used, or learn about what features they think are important, and play with those things in your lab. That's very important, to learn to do the things that IT people are expected to be doing with those products. Once you get kind of past a rudimentary level, you can start looking at certification paths. This doesn't mean you have to buy or pay for the actual certifications, although early in your career that'll be super helpful to demonstrate both your willingness and your capabilities. But if you go in, and I'll just give an example, a great starting place, the starting place for IT is always the CompTIA Network Plus certification. It teaches the basics. It makes sure that you have nailed down really, really rudimentary, everybody in IT should know these kind of things. Great, get that, demonstrate that you have that. No matter what you want to do in IT, get that and make sure you have that base knowledge. But then go on and look at your career goals and say, well, I really want to be a Windows administrator, is a common example. I want to be a Windows administrator. Well, look at the Microsoft Windows certification paths and get some of their books and maybe some third-party books that help you down those paths, and study through those books very carefully and do every example. Try every technology in your home lab that they talk about. Make sure that you know them cold. Don't just learn enough to pass the test. Learn enough to be competent using those things, cradle to grave. And those make for great stories to tell when you're in a interview situation. It's not just a resume that says, I've touched Active Directory. No. I set up Active Directory 10 different times in 10 different ways, and I did it for my family and my neighbors, and I connected them over a VPN and all this really cool stuff that your business may not have done yet. I've done that at home, and I do it all the time, and I keep that maintained. That's how serious I am. And I'm certified in it, and I've gone through completely without having to have someone hold my hand. I went through the education paths on my own as a self-starter. That is an incredible amount of education, it's an incredible amount of experience, and it makes for a great talking point, not in your first interview, in every interview for your entire career. So that's a really good place to start, and you can get a really long way doing that. And if you're in high school especially, you can build a portfolio of skills and certifications and experience that you can take even long before you're 18 and go to a lot of companies and potentially get in. Of course, it's going to be entry-level work, especially if you're like 16, but work in IT, you want to get that clock started. The sooner you get your first IT job, the longer you have experience in the field. Because playing around and getting your lab going, that stuff's great for education, and it shows a lot of initiative, but it's not going to start your career clock. And your career clock is one of the most important things you will ever have until you get to about 30, 35 years in the field, and then no one cares about any additional experience. You're kind of tapped out. Now, how do you get that first job? Obviously, there are internships, and if you can get one, that's great. Go out and get an internship, especially a paid one. Great, that's just called a job, right? Don't even call it an internship, that's a paid job. Go out there and learn from other people while getting paid and having your actual career underway. Perfect. A lot of times, especially if you're young and especially if you have no other experience, this can be very challenging. And so people resort to desperate measures like paying for 4 years in university, trying to get them to help you get into your very first job. That's one path you can take. And if you want to go to university anyway, that can be perfect. But if you are only going to university to get yourself in the door that very first job, you've got a problem. That is not effective. If you're going to university for other reasons and it helps you get that first job, then it's very effective. That's incredibly important to understand. If you're just looking to get into your foot in the door for that first thing and you can't find an internship and no one wants to hire you as a junior because you simply have nothing else on your resume, you have no other working experience. First of all working experience will count in some way towards getting that first job. Combine good, solid working experience with good skill sets and home lab and certifications, you might be good enough right there. But let's assume that for some reason you're not. You're in a market that's very challenging. You can volunteer in a lot of cases, and churches are generally pretty easy to volunteer at. They often don't have IT staff, and if they do have someone doing IT, it's someone who does IT somewhere else and is doing this as a favor and doesn't have time and doesn't want to do it. Or private schools or other non-profits. Look around. There's almost always somewhere where you can volunteer to do IT. And yeah, you won't get paid and you won't be able to call it a job, but it will go on your resume and it won't just look good. It'll look like you have a lot of initiative because you're willing to do it without getting paid. And also when you do volunteer work, you often get to do a lot more work than you would do in a normal job, right? You may get to dictate a lot of things you wouldn't normally get to dictate. You might get to make a lot of choices you wouldn't normally get to make. You may get to do a lot of range that you don't normally get to do because there's no one else doing it, right? So you may get to do things that are much more senior than you would, especially in an internship. But even if you were to have, say, a small business job, if you were to get into a shop of, say, 30 users, you may only be allowed to do some pretty basic things. But if you get into a volunteer situation, there's a lot of times where you may get to do a lot of stuff you wouldn't normally get to touch and advance your career even faster. And a lot of times you may get to play a major role in those decisions, which is important because at entry-level IT, quite often you're not much of a decision maker, and that's fine. That's just where you start. But if you're able to demonstrate the ability and the experience in making decisions, that can help you advance much faster in your IT career when you do get into paying jobs because you have that experience not just in the technology, but in making decisions that affect the business in important ways. So all of that is very, very important. So getting the clock ticking on your career, volunteering, finding internships, and they are out there, right? Look for them. And home lab learning and certifications give you a lot of ways to get started in IT and get that experience under your belt. Now, while you're doing all of that, you need to also be doing things like continuously researching online new technologies and what's happening. Read the news, keep up with stuff because technology changes, there's new stuff. Be able to talk about new things that are going on, research them. Maybe attend conferences if you can. Attend local meetups of different groups. VMware, for example, has great local user groups that happen all over the place. Spiceworks has a lot of SpiceCore events where it's just local IT people getting together from the small business space throughout the world, right? And of course, get online and go to online communities where there are other IT professionals. And there's several of these out there, and there's different types of communities, and some that you will find very quickly are Server Fault, for example. And Server Fault is wonderful for, I have a question, I need to get an answer. Get involved there. See how many things you can answer. This is a way to challenge yourself, right? Look for questions that have not been answered. Figure out the answer, or at least propose an answer. Just having to do that research will teach you to look into things that you haven't had to look into for yourself. Or if you have looked in for yourself, you have that information to share for someone. It's really good experience, and it's much like working in a real environment with a lot more problems, because in a normal environment, you won't run into problems that often. But on Server Fault, you'll see one every few minutes. Another type of community is the peer discussion community. So Server Fault is about questions and answers. Someone has a specific problem, and you can answer it pretty definitively most of the time. That's all there is to it. It's not about looking into what they're doing. It's simply about answering their question. Other communities, though, such as the Spiceworks community and mangolassi.it, these are professional peer support communities, and they're quite a bit different. They're not questions and answers. They are discussions. They are peer review. They are people who know each other and hang out and are in constant contact. So you get a very, very different type of conversation there, and you'll still have people asking questions and people trying to answer them, but that's a much smaller part of the community. What you get a lot more is IT professionals who are talking about new technologies that are coming out, or talking about how they should approach a problem, how should they be thinking about their designs for next year, and things like that. Instead of a problem and an answer, it's more of an open discussion and peer review. And this is really important. This is where everyone who's not just looking to get into IT, but that is in IT, should be every day. And a lot of people are, and the level of advancement that you can do for your career and your knowledge is extreme, because you have a chance to not only look at problems and try to solve them, but you look at the bigger decision making, and you see what people are doing, what people think they should do, what other people think they should do, and you will see people constantly reviewing those things. So someone says, I'm going to put in a 6-drive 10K RPM RAID 10 array. What do you think? And people will talk about, well, what are the factors? How much does it cost? How fast does it need to be? Why did you choose this? Where are you going to deploy it? And then people will say, well, what have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Here's the factors that would make you consider those other things. And this can broaden your scope very, very quickly as you see decision makers showing how they're making decisions and reviewing other people's decisions and having back and forth. Sometimes you'll see this person is very respected and this person is very respected, and they come up with different answers from the same situation. And you can see sometimes how they're viewing them and what makes them both viable or neither viable, and maybe someone's wrong, right? There's so much to be learned, and it gives you a chance to see mistakes that people are constantly making and discussions around it, right? You may see, for example, from a talk we just had, someone may say, well, I don't want to use Hyper-V because it's a Type 2 hypervisor. And you'll see 100 people jump on a conversation and be like, whoa, that's a Type 1 hypervisor. Here's probably why you thought it was a Type 2, and this is a common myth, and you should just know this about Hyper-V. But, right, and you'll find that tons of people make this mistake and repeat this myth, and people are constantly explaining why it's not true. By participating in a community like this, you can easily see and learn why Hyper-V is a Type 1 and not a Type 2, but also why people think it's a Type 2. And you'll not only be prepared to explain that to someone, you'll also be prepared to know the things that you need to know, and you will also be prepared to look for a common myth that people make the mistake of all the time. Put these things together, this is a really powerful thing. And you can propose your own ideas and get review, or you can propose ideas. Someone says, I want to do this. You can say, well, have you thought about this other thing? And then see how people respond to you. Maybe you had a great idea. Maybe your idea is terrible, and people will explain why. This is how you learn. Be prepared. Harsh feedback. It's a peer review world. This is an open these are all open communities, places where professionals are interacting with each other, and they're not going to let you get away with crazy ideas, and they're going to call you out for it. But don't take that as a personal thing. Take that as professional, right? A good professional is not going to let you get away with bad ideas. They're going to push you to better yourself, and they're going to explain why, and they're going to help you find the right answers, right? So it's important to not have a bad emotional response when dealing with any professional review. And so these communities like mangolassi.it and Spiceworks also have in-person meetups that you can attend called Spice Course for Spiceworks and Mango Meetups for Mangolassi, and both have conferences. The Spice World Conference for Spiceworks and the MangoCon conference for Mangolassi. And so there's lots of chances to meet people in person. There's a lot of chances to attend events. There's a lot of chances to watch online content. There's lots of chances to get involved every day, 24 hours a day in conversations, which is a really important thing. No matter how bored you are, no matter how stumped you are, no matter how you're clear you're not on where to go next, there's a community that you can jump into and be involved in and be promoting yourself in an educational way and promoting yourself in a professional way right this second of every day. There's always an opportunity around that, whether you're answering a question, asking a question, proposing ideas, reading up on the latest activity, whatever. There's a way to be involved no matter how much you don't have the job that you want yet. And once you have that job, you still want to be involved, because these are the communities that help you grow no matter what level you're at. And very few careers have those kind of resources. So that's really, really huge. So these are things you can be doing today. All of these things, no matter who you are, what stage you're at, whether you're 12 and you're in middle school, or you're in high school, or you're in college, or you're post-college, or you're working a different career, or you want to switch careers, or you're in IT but not where you want to be. All of these avenues are open to you, and open to you today. And the more you do them, all of them, their activity reflects on you. Right? It's easy to say, well, my home lab, I did a bunch of work, I read a bunch of books, I got a bunch of certs. That shows up on my resume. But so does your activity online. It's not uncommon to do a lot of work in an online community and be able to take that as something to a potential employer and be like, look at my activity, look how good it is. Look at the kind of responses I give to people. Look at the broad range of things I answer. Look at the ideas I propose. Look how professional I am in how I deal with people. Look at the conferences I attend. Look how involved I am in my local IT community. I go out and I don't just attend these meetings, I help organize them. I get involved, right? These are all things you can show. You can show how often you post. You can show how often you're providing answers. You can write articles, and communities like these will often let you publish there, or you can publish somewhere else as well. All those things, there's ways to create that value for yourself and your career and get things going, and to show them to a potential employer as something that your competition does not have. Just because someone else may have 1 year of experience, you may have 1 year of dedication to the field that nobody can top. And that is a huge differentiator. It won't work for every job, but it will work for a lot of jobs. And remember, when you are looking at your career, you are never looking for a bulk of jobs. You care about one job at a time, and over your career you might want 5 or 50, but you're never looking at for 1,000. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make. They think that they're trying to develop themselves for a bulk of jobs. And it's kind of a useful theory. If I can get 1,000 jobs, I'm more likely to get one. It makes sense. But the reality is, all you care about is getting the right job for you. As long as you're able to get the right job for you, being prepared to be able to get the wrong job for you is not very valuable. But a lot of people spend most of their focus on being broadly available for a lot of jobs they probably don't want, rather than focusing on getting just the job that's right for them. And so once you have that right job, you don't care about those others. And if you have that right job for your entire career, you really don't care about those others. Whether they're there or not don't affect you. So that's a way of thinking about your career goals, that you're not trying to create a resume that gets past every HR person and makes every hiring manager happy and does all these things. It doesn't matter. You care that you get past HR for the right job, if HR is even involved in the right job. You care that the right hiring manager looks at your resume and has what you want. You care that the things you've done has made the right job interested in you and able to pay you what you want to make. By doing that, it really frees you from some of the mundane tasks of learning that a lot of people feel they have to do to be prepared for jobs they don't want. So I hope that this is helpful. Please, please, please comment, get involved, go out, start with your local communities, right? Make an account, start posting today, post every day. Honestly, I tell people, if you aren't posting every day from the moment you learn about online professional review communities, you're not cut out for IT. Because if you put it off even a day, it means you weren't taking it that seriously. Same thing with your home lab. You should be downloading stuff and building it today. And go to those communities. Yeah, from this video, I don't have time to tell you every little thing you should be learning and exactly the name of every job that you may want. Right? You may not have a great idea, having not worked in IT, which job fits the things that you like to do. Get out to the professional peer review communities and ask those questions. Hop on mangolossi.it. You can make an account in 10 seconds. You can ask a question 5 seconds later. You get a question out there that says, look, I'm looking to get into IT. I just watched this video from Scott Allen Miller, and he said I should ask here, these are the things I like. I like working on computers and I like working with people, but I really like data and I like math. How does this work out? Do you think DBA, is that the job I should be going for? Okay, so it's DBA. What kind of DBA should I be looking at? Where are careers going? What things do different people in different DBA fields do? Okay, so how do I start building a home lab for that? Those questions are perfect to be asking in those kind of communities, because you'll find people with that experience ready to help you immediately, including me. And once you have that initial guidance, then you can be like, okay, now I'm building my home lab and I'm doing it for this purpose. What do I install? What do I do next? I've learned this thing. Where's my next step? I've run into this roadblock and I don't know where to find help. Where do I go? I want to learn about Microsoft SQL Server. What's a good book? Those kinds of questions are the things that you need to ask, because you have no way to know. And these are the communities that answer them. No matter what resources you have, whether you come from a family that's full of IT professionals that can answer all your questions, or you already have an internship it doesn't matter. You're going to get 1,000 times more resources in online peer review communities than you're going to get in any other walk of life. And this is a big deal because no matter where you go in your career and how big you get, you're still going to need these communities to get your best resources, because the people you have around you, chances are at best you're going to have one or two really good people and a whole bunch of people that are more mid-level or just have bad answers and aren't being reviewed. And this is the case in every field. This has nothing to do with IT. You want to use things like peer review communities to get larger bodies of knowledge so that you can filter through and see what good answers really are, rather than taking whatever answer you can get from whoever happens to be local, which creates a bubble effect and can be very dangerous. You can not realize that you're getting information that's incredibly out of skew because there's no one there to review it and be like, whoa, whoa, this is crazy. The whole industry does something and this isn't it. You need to be aware of this. So I hope that this is helpful. Please ask questions here, follow the links, get involved in the communities today, and start building your home lab and start working on your career path. Welcome to IT. It is a wonderful field with so many opportunities, and it's open for you to create your own career in. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, I will have discussion links in the notes.